All right. I'm just going to take a second here, make sure we've got our live audience joining us. We are live. This is the Live with Sondra show. I'm your host, Sondra Shannon, CEO of Gatemaster Technology. And today's guest and today's organization needs no introduction because if you are in the attractions industry, you are most likely familiar with what this organization does for all of us in the attractions industry, our communities, the advocacy that they're doing for us, the events that they're planning for us, the connecting that they give us, the connections. I'm really excited to talk about that part because that was part of my journey last year. And, just who they are. I'm excited to learn more about this organization, who they are. And today I've got the president and CEO of IAAPA. And if you, like I said, he does not need an introduction. This is one of my favorite parts of being on this show is being able to interview people that I not only look up to, but people who have had a lot of influence and organizations who have had influence both on my company and myself's professional journey, but also most of you listening today, this organization has had an impact on you and your business, your attraction business. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Jakob Wahl to the stage. Now, let me just give you a quick bio on Jakob. He's the president and CEO of IAAPA, the Global Association for the Attractions Industry. He has over a decade of leadership at IAAPA, previously serving as VP and Executive Director of IAAPA, former Director of Communications at Europa Park, with expertise in attractions, operations, trends, and professional development. We always ask our guests what they cannot live without, and I love this when family is something that they mention, and he says his wife and 2 daughters. So without further ado, like I said, we are so excited to have Jakob on the show. Jakob, welcome to the Live with Sondra show.
Thank you so much for having me, Sandra, and thank you for the very nice introduction. It always sounds crazy to hear about myself, but thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And like I said, you need no introduction because if you are in the attraction industry, I think most of us are familiar with IAAPA and what you all are doing and all the amazing things that you've done for us as an industry and what you're doing for us. I mean, I just want to touch a little bit about IAAPA. Last year, Gatemaster was just honored to be able to sponsor some of the connection events. And what I realized in that moment, or, as being a part of that, I was able to attend most of those, was how thoughtful this organization is about connecting attractions and people. And that is why I'm so grateful to have you on the show today. One, because we're able to connect. And two, I just want to encourage more people to be a part of these events. This is the only thing that makes me sad. We need more people at these connection events. And as much as I'd like to gatekeep the public affairs conference, which was my favorite one, and I loved the intimacy of it, I also know, and I did promise the IAAPA team that I would keep talking about this event so that we could get more attractions and more of the industry out to that event. But is there anything else you want to tell?
We do it for you, right? We do those connections because we want to deliver services and products for you guys, and that is the only reason why we exist and how we want to make things move forward by delivering services where you say, hey, that was useful. I met some peers, I met some, in that case, politicians, which help me in my daily business.
Or some of my best friends come from this industry, right? Because I mean, it's important to work with people you enjoy, right? And I think that that's a nice thing about IAAPA is the way that you're connecting people, but also, and we talked a little bit about this before the show. Gatemaster's been a member for, I believe, close to 31 years. I've missed one in 25 years. I don't know if I've ever told you this story. I've missed one in 25 years. I busted my knee right before. And I didn't want to. I mean, you know how big IAAPA Expo is. I was like, I'm not walking this place with this knee.
We have mobility scooters. So next time, I hope it doesn't happen again. You bust your knee, but next time we can give you a scooter.
Yeah, actually, I should have done that. I should have got the. That's good to know. That's a part of the organizing such a large event. I didn't think of, but I should have known that you guys would had that thought of. But it was right before in my defense, it was literally right before the expo. And it was an excruciating pain. It was not, that probably was the biggest thing. But I was sad to miss that year. Well, and I should say the year that we didn't have IAAPA 2020. But that kind of leads me to where we're going with this conversation. I have so many questions for you. If you don't mind me jumping into them. And some of these questions I
Bring
think
them on.
questions that other people have. So, when we look at what's happening in the attractions industry in terms of trends and innovations, and this is where I'm so excited because I think you are somebody who can answer these questions so well for us. And, what are some of the biggest trends that you see currently shaping the attraction industry? Is there anything that stands out to you?
I could talk about that for hours, but I would limit it to what I would consider the 5 key trends. And that is, the first one is intellectual property. That is so huge everywhere. Second, accommodation. I think we have always been good in delivering immersive experiences, but people want to stay longer. They want to have that overnight experience, that special experience. Which brings me to the third thing. It is just iconic experiences, things which people can't see somewhere else. Those Instagrammable moments that you have, which are visually that strong that you can share with everybody else on social media. Fourth thing, I think it's shorter experiences as well. Obviously, we have the big mega projects like Epic Universe. We have the big parks investing, continue to grow, but we also see a massive growth of those smaller attractions, 2 to 3 hours spending time, Museum of Ice Cream, like as an example. Those pop-up attractions or touring exhibitions, which are very popular. And then the last one, technology. And that can be front of house, it can be back of house, that can be, guest flow, but it can also add to the experience. So I think those 5 ones are, for me, the key trends which we see in this industry.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, all of those are interesting, but I love what you said about the shorter experiences, maybe something somebody does just for a day, for a few hours. We've not really talked a lot about that on the show, but that one's interesting to me because I have a lot of attractions that I've either worked with or talked to that are looking for, what can we do in our off season? And I think that really speaks to those maybe seasonal opportunities as well, where people are staying local, but they want to have these unique experiences. In fact, I'm going next week to the Denver Zoo. It's got the preview night of their they have a glow event. So I'm really excited.
Perfect example, yeah. I mean, events is huge. Look at the importance and relevance of Halloween. And we have across the world many parks which have had very successful Christmas openings. And the introduction of events and special festivities has been huge.
Yeah, and speaking of the Denver Zoo, last year we had IAAPA hosted a connection event at Meetup event at the Denver Zoo, and I have to tell you that was a really special experience for me because one, I'd never been in a zoo at night, and it was summertime, so all the animals were out.
Yeah.
And I often tell people when I talk to them about the Meetup events and try to get them to come join us for these events because I'm not missing one this year. It's such a special experience that you all are offering to attractions and people in the industry. Because like I said, I've never been in a zoo at night like that, where it's just maybe a small group of people. So we were able to go in and visit the kangaroos that they had there, and the food was amazing. But these are one of a kind experiences. What we did at Not Scary Farm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not something that the general public gets to experience. And so, I just have to thank you for that because it's just made me, I love this industry. I've been in this industry since 1999. So I've been here a long time, but it just reinforced my love and belief of what we're doing and creating these experiences, as you said. That's a big part of what we do and where these trends are going. But yeah, that was really a big influence on me last year, and glad to be a part of it. But I want to encourage people to come out and do these events for that reason.
And I think that's kind of what we're aiming at. We want to make events which are, first of all, we couldn't do it without our members. So my first thanks go to those members who are actually hosting us. But then we always discuss with them and say, hey, listen, your peers are coming. Those people who do the same as you, what can you show them what the normal guest doesn't see? And we you talked about your experiences. We just come back from Saudi Arabia, where we had an event where we actually were allowed to see the new Six Flags park prior to its opening, Six Flags Qiddiya City. And that, that is what we try to do. End of April, we had Yoba Park with the IAAPA Honors event, and we will have backstage tours. We will talk about their HR. We will talk about their, their education program, all of those things which a lot of guests have never seen. And thanks to our members, we actually can share that to other members. That is what makes it special.
Yeah, and what you all do is so well put together, and the value of what you do too. I mean, like I said, I'm just thrilled. In fact, my kids say to me all the time, they say, "Mom, are you really working? I saw
Yes.
you were on a roller coaster yesterday, right? We go to these events. Last
My
year,
parents still hope that I will get a real job, as I say
yeah,
sometimes,
yeah,
because I
oh,
can't believe that somebody is paying for that.
yeah, right. My parents say the same thing still, and I've been here all these years. And I started because I loved these experiences. But when we look at the industry trends, and you mentioned some of this, what do you see being some of those emerging technologies that you're talking about that are making the biggest impact on operations and guest experience?
I think actually what we see is that COVID, and it's hard to say, helped us in that way. I think COVID forced us to become more digitized and more advanced in technology. So I think with what we had to do back then in guest flow control and all of those things has continued. So I think technology is very strong nowadays in the whole guest flow experience, so to say. And that starts with the ticketing. Dynamic pricing we have probably been much later than the hotel industry, than the airline industry, than the rental car companies. But we are now seeing that this is getting more and more every day and every year. I think also one thing which we see is just technology in the park, which allows for an easier flow. Mobile food ordering, mobile waiting time systems. All those aspects which help driving the experience, so to say, to make it flawless. At the same time, I think also we see technology back of house in terms of maintenance system that has become very big in controlling all of those aspects. But there are aspects as well which are actually adding to the experience, so to say, and that can be small scale but big scale. I give you two examples. Super Mario Kart at Universal, where you see the first big implementation of augmented reality in a ride, has been huge in Universal Studios Hollywood, Universal Studios Japan, and now coming here as well to Orlando. But it also exists on a smaller scale. There's a small park in Denmark, Sommerland Sjælland, and the owner is a tech freak. He's fantastic. So he added an app where through the app you can actually feed the animals, where through the app you can shoot water cannons at other riders, and all those little fun aspects. Because I think the most important is people will always have the phone with them. So the question is, how can I bring the experience which you have in the park to the phone? Because the younger generations won't let go. I think that is a very important aspect. A very important aspect for me as well is that technology might not be the reason why people come, but it enhances the experience. And I think that is something which we should never forget.
Well, and I think what's interesting to me, being on the ticketing side and doing some of that, is, and I think it goes overlooked, that it's also the park's connection to the guest. It's their
Yes,
connection to the guest in
I,
ways that we didn't have before.
No, because I think when you look back 10, 15 years ago, you sat in your car in the morning, you drove to the next park, you bought your ticket, you left, and the visit was gone. And now, now that you buy your ticket before, the whole experience is much longer, and you can actually interact with the guest beforehand. You can upsell, certain things. You can offer special experiences. When you look here at SeaWorld in Orlando, you can become trainer for a day. You can participate in some feedings. All of those things which you now can plan did not exist in the same style 15, 20 years ago. I think this is where the digital aspect has made huge growth over the past years.
Yeah, I completely agree. What I also love about this extension of the experience is, allows for people to plan too. You know, in the old days, and I come from a time when we would sell season passes, and you'd take a Polaroid picture and you'd laminate that and send it out weeks later, and yeah, that certainly drug on the experience, but you know, the quality of the experience was a little bit different. And now we can give these things on demand. But what I'm seeing too in some of our data is that when the guest is told that they can do things like be a trainer for a day, they actually start thinking about it and planning for that as part of the experience that they're going to have. And had they not been given that information ahead of time, they might not have been able to do that for various reasons, right? It could be time availability, or just they didn't plan for that experience in terms of the investment, because this is an investment. I always say, you know, you look, I'm a mother of three, so when I look at bringing a family of five to any park, I certainly can see that what's happening for these families and any participant, even if you're just coming with friends, it's an investment in us, in this industry, when they decide to participate with us.
And I think that is a crucial point when I talked about trends, about expectations, and about experiences. You know, and I give you that example of Tomorrowland, one of the world's biggest music festivals in Belgium, always sold out. It's fantastic. If you have not looked at it, please have a look. Even if it's not the music, it's very, very impressive in terms of theming and operations. Because if you buy your ticket, they send you a wristband some weeks prior to the event. On the wristband, every information is stored. Your name, where do you have access? Can you access that VIP lounge? Can you access that stage? All of that is just on the wristband. And then you actually load it with cash beforehand, because the whole festival is cash free. And then the funny thing is that is all guest flow. But all of a sudden, like 1-2 weeks before the event, the wristband becomes alive. They're like little LEDs and they start blinking. So the closer the festival comes, the more interaction you have with that and the more excitement it builds. And I think that is something which is so important, because it extends the experience, and at the same time, it gives you a flawless visit, because you said it, it's an investment. You don't want to wait somewhere. You don't want to be annoyed because the burger takes so long. All of those aspects, because you spend so much money, you have high expectations. And I think this is where the industry has actually developed very well in offering those very, very good experiences.
Well, and it's created an opportunity for very high-end experiences.
Yes.
Which is,
there's no limit. Like we see the smaller attractions as we discussed, but we also see, in the high element, there's always somebody who wants to buy the most expensive package. There's always somebody.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about this industry is at its core, there's always something for everyone.
Yes.
And it's important, because that brings us to what one of the things I love about IAAPA being global is it's including the world in these experiences. And I think I saw somewhere, I know you're in Florida with that view behind you.
By the way, here's a picture of Tomorrowland. I just noticed it. I was
that's cool.
About it. There's a picture.
That's really cool.
We have some members here lined up. The Palace of the President in Abu Dhabi, that's also a member of us. So you see the diversity.
Wow, that's amazing. No, I'm glad you stopped to share that. But being in Florida, one of the, I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but I've been working with Chris Martin from Coldplay and Emmanuel Kelly on a project called Outlier, which is looking at experiences from the standpoint of people with disabilities and differently abled people, and what does that look like for them, and how can we improve those experiences. And one of the things that's interesting to me about when they first brought me on the team a couple of years ago, one of the things that's been really interesting to me that I think you kind of hit on when we're talking about creating experiences for everyone. And I know one of the first places we're going to for the IAAPA Connects is it? Can I say it? Is it announced yet, or do I?
Okay.
Morgan's Wonderland, which I'm very excited about, because I think that they are making great strides in innovating for that community and that space.
Yeah, and you just mentioning the name gives me goosebumps, because I think what they have done for this industry and for their audience is astonishing. And I think you say it, it is in our interest to give those experiences to the largest number of people available. And I think this is where Morgan's Wonderland and the Hartman family, they were inducted into the IAAPA Hall of Fame last year. They had also at the leadership breakfast. It is just so impressive. And it was, when sometimes people say, what is IAAPA doing about it? And it's, giving those people the platform to talk about it and share it with others. And I give you the example at the end of the leadership breakfast where the Hartman family talked about Morgan's Wonderland, this ultra accessible theme park in Texas. I had a group of park people standing next to me, and they came and said, we always thought we did a lot for accessibility, but we can do so much more, and we will. And I think that caters again to this idea of an association. And if your listeners are IAAPA members, actually we have the IAAPA EMEA Safety Committee has done some fantastic white papers on accessibility. Some of them are 70 pages on how everyone can improve accessibility in their parks. I can only recommend it. It's for free for IAAPA members, and it shows, what else can you do to help and become actually not only doing the right thing by being accessible, but also actually, there's an economic interest because, those groups often come in large groups. They're very well connected. They talk to each other and saying, hey, they have been very welcoming to us. And I think this is where it's good to do the right thing, and actually it's also beneficial.
Well, and I love what you're saying there, and the tools that IAAPA is providing for people, because this is a big one for me because of working with Outlier for the last 2 years, which has certainly opened my eyes to the need of accessibility in the attraction space. But what also I've been learning about this. So I was at Cambridge University in January, and we had a symposium where they have the first they call it inclusive design program in the world. But Cambridge is also one of the oldest universities, if not the oldest. I somebody can correct me on that. I don't know. I think it might be one of them. But
That's a fact check, yes.
Yeah, they have an inclusive design department, and one of the things that I've learned from the professors there that I thought was so interesting is when we design and we create space for everybody, everyone wins, right? Yeah. And that is something that I think we see even happening at Morgan's Wonderland. I got to hear them at the leadership breakfast on, talk about what they're doing with that park and the passion behind it. I mean, I left that event in tears.
Yeah.
Because the truth is it has such a huge impact on who we are as attractions to be able to be looking at these things. Not only from a technological standpoint, you're saying it's the most accessible park, which requires a lot of technology.
Yeah.
But it's also making such a huge difference in the world.
Yeah, it does.
And
it was interesting at that leadership breakfast. I've never seen no one leaving the room, and it was dead silent because everybody was so captured by that story. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. And again, another great thing that IAAPA has done for us is to allow us to have access to speakers like that who can share their experiences. And that kind of leads me to my next part of the questions that I have for you about sustainability.
Yes.
And I'm curious, how are you seeing attractions adjust to the ever evolving sustainability expectations that we have?
I think first of all, we need to clarify that sustainability is not only recycling. It's so much more. It's ecological, it's social, it's governance, it's economical actually in the end. And I with my background, I'm a firm believer that sustainability will have the same relevance, the same importance as safety has in some years. People might not come because your park is sustainable, but they expect you to be sustainable. And this is where we see, some great examples. We see, a variety of action items which we have seen across the world. And as IAAPA, we are actually handing out this year for the first time an award for the best sustainability program. And there were some panelists, Poland water parks from Turkey, Portaventura from Spain, Efteling from the Netherlands, who really dedicated a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of energy into those programs. And once again, IAAPA comes into play to try to talk about it, that others can learn from it. So we're very happy that in December, we have a new team member who joined us, Ilva Linda, Director of Sustainability. So her job right now is to develop, for example, a white paper about 10 very simple steps which everybody can do to improve sustainability at their facilities. And I think that is where it is very important to outline those ideas and to share with them, because we have wonderful examples from around the world. I just named some, but also if you look at Latin America, Xcaret in Mexico is a fantastic place, which is very much about social sustainability. And I think there are some wonderful examples where we at our events try to have more sessions on best practices. And again, just the idea of IAAPA we create the framework where members can meet other members who have done experiences and great things in those places.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess I didn't know that you had all of these papers that, I mean, I because I'm not running a park, I'm no longer running an attraction these days, but I love that those resources are available. And real quick, before I forget, because I don't want to make sure, do they just access that on your website, or is that something that's through a member portal? Okay.
Yeah, it's on our website on the member portal, so you have access, and there's a whole section about different white papers, different documents, different study reports, and lots of research. So it's very vast.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, which actually kind of brings me to my next questions for you. This is one that I'm really excited about, which is professional development and industry growth. I have been lucky enough to be a part of the mentor-mentee program that IAAPA has. Yeah, I've my last two mentees. I often say they taught me quite a lot about the industry. I had one that was a right engineer and another who is a storyteller, the designers, the storytellers, the ones who come up with the scenes for the rides. She's just getting into that part of the industry. These are areas of the attraction space that are outside of my expertise, but I've learned so much from them while still being able to support and help them with their growth, whatever I can. But I'm curious, when you look at the skills that are most valuable for professionals in the attractions industry, what do you see that being in the coming years? What do you think that these mentees need to be looking at?
I think first of all, it's seeing the growth opportunities in this industry. I think we have so many people within our own business who have started as a parking lot instructor, as an ice cream vendor, and to see the opportunities which you can have in growing. I think then, we often we organize events like what we call the Institute for Attraction Professionals, where you get insights into the different areas of operations of a theme park. But I think what is more important today is probably the idea that we live in an ever-changing environment, and the idea of being adaptive to different situations, about learning to innovate. What does technology mean? What does digital mean? And then ultimately, how do I become a leader and how do I become talent? I think our industry is a fantastic industry for everybody who is curious, who's passionate, who's eager to drive. Kobe Bryant once said, "I can't bring you to the gym. You have to go to the gym yourself." And I think that's what this industry is about. If you're passionate, you will make your way up, because that is what we do. And I think those are definitely skills which you need. But in addition to that, you obviously need to learn about what is happening out there. This is where IAAPA comes into play.
Well, I think that's pretty amazing, because I love what you said, because I was just having this conversation with a friend yesterday about how this is one of the few industries where you can go from a ride operator to a CEO.
Yeah.
I mean, and ultimately, or a laser tag player to a CEO, because that was my experience. I got into the industry because I loved laser tag. I was a laser tag nerd, and when it came to the US,
I want to play laser tag one day with you.
Yeah, we should play. I'm not.
I probably have zero chances against you if you're so good in that, but I would love to do that.
Hey, my kids still to this day haven't beat me, and people would often say, they say, "Sondra, do you let the kids win?" I'm like, no, I gotta figure this out. They gotta learn to beat me. But I loved laser tag so much, and that was what got me into this industry. I mean, I don't play as much as I used to, but that passion for that experience. And then what we would be able to do when we would have birthday parties and watch this kids' faces and their friends all being there. I mean, that is such a huge thing for this industry. But I love that you mentioned that there are opportunities in this industry, and we have a very unique industry. And somebody like me who is just loves laser tag can end up in this position. Somebody who is a ride operator could end up being a general manager or even the COO. I know COOs of parks who were once ride operators, and I
Yeah.
love that about this industry. And
Yeah.
I love that IAAPA is supporting the professional development of the attractions industry and the young people, the young professionals. What other, I know that IAAPA has a mentee mentor program, but I'm
Yes.
also curious, what other ways do you support the growth of professionals within the attraction industries? I know there's a whole lot of things that are out there with IAAPA.
Well, how much time do I have? We have we have a very strong professional development program. So we have lots of online courses, and we have lots of those institute programs, what we call them, the Institute of Attraction Professionals. We have the education at our expos, where we have a very thorough program. And as we speak, actually, the North American Education Committee is just meeting next door to discuss what are the sessions, what are the presentations to be organized this year at IAAPA Expo here in Orlando. And I think those are all areas where you can get involved. We are working on much more. We have an online learning management system, LMS, where you can have many courses. And right now we are working on a special package, actually, where 25% of the education is included in your membership fee. In addition, it's learning from peers. It's learning from other institutions, learning from other members, and we are increasing our webinar program this year as well, where we have some wonderful presentations of some of the most brilliant members in what they do or where they have excelled in a special area.
Yeah, it's amazing. I got to attend the women's leadership
Yes.
lunch at the expo this year in last November. And that was really amazing, getting to hear from women who are in these spaces, who are doing what you're saying, learning from each other, opening up doors and opportunities. I think that's one reason why I really do love this industry and love being a part of seeing this growth in terms of young professionals. You guys have a young professionals program, because I know a lot of the ambassadors are part of the young professional program.
Yeah, and we're trying to do more there. I think that is an area where we want to grow further. But when you said about women in the industry, I'm very proud actually that our next Fun World edition has a cover story about women in the industry, and it's a wonderful cover highlighting many different female leaders from across the world, and I think it shows what is the incredible talent out there, and I'm very excited about that. You mentioned the women luncheon last year at IAAPA Orlando and at the expo. We will host it again this year. We are working on some fantastic speakers, and I think it is a great testament, what you said, to show what are the opportunities, what is the potential, and hey, if they can make it, I might have a chance as well.
And I think, so I straddle attractions and tech. So I was at a tech conference maybe like a year back.
It's probably more male. It is than our
What's
industry. That is even more male than our industry, tech industry.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I don't know if you know this about me. When I started with Gatemaster, we were founded in San Francisco. I was the youngest and the only woman. And I often say the hardest thing was not being the only woman. Actually, my youth was the hardest part, like having to learn and find the right mentors and find the right people to champion me in spaces, because I was only 21 when I joined the team. So I was very young. I mean, it's a long time ago. It feels like a lifetime ago. But, that's one of the reasons that I think these opportunities that you're presenting, these lunches that you're doing, I'm so glad to hear you're going to bring the lunch back next year, because I do think, having been in the tech space, we looked at some of the research on why it was taking these young females in technology 3 times as long as their peers to find replacement jobs in these layoffs. And one of the reasons, you know what the biggest reason was?
No.
Their networks weren't as big.
What?
So it wasn't even that they were women, even though it's there's a lot of men in that space. It was that they just didn't know enough people. And I think that these luncheons that you're doing, these connection events that you're doing, it allows people that opportunity to show up, right?
Yeah, and if I can say something, and this is really, it's not meant to be shameless marketing, but it is something where I just encourage everybody. We're working on some things for this year, and I know they will sell out. I know they will. So please, when you want to visit one of those, and there will be some fantastic things happening this year, be early, because I hate to turn down later those requests, and I wish we could accommodate everybody, but there are also in the IAAPA world, there are fire marshals and room capacity, so we cannot get everybody in. But that is just my advice for you. Be early to the listeners as well.
Hey, I think that's good advice. One of my mentors always says, if you're not first, you're last. Right? So you got to get on it. And these are incredible experiences. Like I said, they're unique, one of a kind. Last year, what was it? Carowinds. We went to Carowinds last year.
Yes.
And I don't mean to call Mike out, but he would not ride. What is that?
Michael Shelton, Vice President of North America.
Yeah, there was a group
is
of
afraid
us.
Of heights. But hey, even if you're afraid of heights, you can still make it.
And I think they have that ride that goes across it. So it was on my bucket list because I can't remember the name of the ride right now, but
isn't it Fury 325?
Yes, Fury 325. So it straddles the two states.
Yes.
And it had been, and so, one of the reasons I bring it up is because that was on my bucket list of things to do, and you guys made it happen. And then, like I said, I had to call Mike out because we couldn't get him to ride with us, but he watched us.
We make it happen, but we couldn't make it happen without the wonderful people at Six Flags and Cedar Fair, and Carowinds.
And just visiting these parks, I have to say, because you're arranging these opportunities with members and partners who are allowing you to do these events, even just going to Branson, Silver Dollar City last year, to see how that park runs and how their people are in creating that amazing experience, and to see it firsthand, because a lot of us don't get to do those experiences anymore because technology actually, I think, has limited us in terms of our actual. In the old days, when I first started with Gate Master, I had to visit 800 attractions. And I had to stay there for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, setting up their systems. Yeah. We don't have to do that anymore. We're lucky if we get to visit 2 or 3 of them. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity that you guys have presented for us to be able to visit all of these parks, and especially parks that were on my bucket list. And there's a whole bunch this year that are on my bucket list. So I
just don't find the time. I wish I could go everywhere because we have some amazing members out there, and it's hard always because at every location where I am, I would like to stay longer. And they say, yeah, you have to stay longer to experience everything. And it's a matter of time, but it's fantastic. And ultimately, I think where I'm very blessed in running an association where people talk to each other, where they open the doors for each other. I mean, I don't think that the mobile industry or the chip industry or the car industry would do the same in opening up their doors and sharing the do's and the don'ts with their peers. And I think that is what makes us very special. It's the people who are willing to help each other to promote everybody at the same time. And I think that is which is a blessing for the industry, and it's a blessing for us as an association because it makes our life easier that there's this willingness of being completely open. We had, and it's in good cases as in bad cases. We have had some tragic accidents, in 1 year ago or 2 years ago in Scandinavia. And what happened is that we talked to both parks, and both parks were 100% transparent. We did an article with them in Fun World. We did sessions at our expos where they shared exactly what happened, what went wrong, that no one else has to go through the same. And I think that is what makes it very special in this industry, that, there's fun, there's networking, but there's definitely the interest of helping each other.
Yes, the interest of helping each other and the parts of safety that you mentioned. And I know we just have a little bit of time left, but I do maybe want to ask you in terms of safety, just so we could touch on that for a minute, because you brought that up, because I think it is super important. And I love sharing with people outside of the community how we do pay attention to safety. And that is of the utmost important to operators to make sure that everyone is safe. And this is part of building community. But if I could ask one thing, what do you see being the best strategies that attractions can use to set industry standards for best safety practices. Is there any one thing that you can give us today that you're seeing? Because I know that is something IAAPA speaks a lot about and speaks to operators about.
I think first and foremost, it's applying the standards, applying the best practices. We have EN, we have ASTM as a global leading standards for safety, for ride safety, which is very important. But I think what we see is we have thought and we have worked all over those years very much on ride safety, and that is super important because it's a basic principle of us as an association, as an industry. But I think what we need to do and what we're doing is to extend that term a little bit. And Linda Freeman joined us as global director for health and safety and security, and to think about what else is there. We need to think about security. We have had issues about counter-terrorism, about those aspects, about drones. We need to talk about cybersecurity. This is huge. We always say, yeah, it won't happen to me. Yes, it will. It's not a question if, it's a question when. We need to talk about fire safety. We had some tragic fires in this industry. And we all know once you go to Starbucks, everybody is asking for that milk and for that, it's food safety. The intolerance of food ingredients becomes bigger and bigger, and we need to cater to that. And those are all aspects which we cannot underestimate in running an attraction, because it becomes more and more important. And I think this is where it's very important to be to have the resources. And our former chairman, Amanda Thompson from Blackpool Pleasure Beach, once said, safety doesn't have a budget line. You cannot budget for safety. You always need to be on top of that, and to really try to respond to that, to know what's happening, to inform yourself, and we have some, again, shameless marketing here, but we have some safety documents on our website, and we have some very, very good safety institutes at our events, to really try to think about all aspects. What can go wrong and what have others done to avoid what can happen to me?
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And last but not least, because I'm just curious of this, and I want to get this out for the end, but because so many of us have been in this industry so long, and we know that there are so many traditions in this industry that are a part of the culture and what we're doing with our experiences. But how do you see the balance between these traditions and the innovation shaping the future of this industry?
I think when you look at today's time, we're in a time where we have political, economic, climate uncertainty about what is happening, where is it heading to. People need distraction. People need the opportunity and the possibility to go somewhere, forget about all those daily news, breaking news, alert messages, and just have fun with each other. And I think this is where traditional rides will always exist. When you go to Tivoli in Copenhagen, that park dates back to 850, and they have a roller coaster which is now 100 years old. You still see people enjoying it the same way as they did 100 years ago, because you look to the right, you look behind, you see the joy, the fear, the love of your family, of your friends, of your co-workers while doing that. And as long as we can provide that, we will have a bright future. At the same time, we need to stay relevant. And I think this is where what I said before, technology evolves so quick. We need to innovate, but we need to think about, how does this technology look like in 5 years? How does it look like in 10 years? When is it outdated? And because of that exponential growth of technology. And I think that is where you ideally combine the traditional fun, but always see where things are developing to. I give you one example. I've recently talked to one of the largest museums in Europe, and they said they have changed the exhibit, which was standing there for 20, 30 years. And I said, why did you do that? Because it was successful. They said, to make it more Instagrammable. Because with the change of the setup, you can do better pictures and they look better with the background, whatever. Other people know more about that than others. But it speaks for this idea of reinventing traditional fun in making sure that people still enjoy it the same way as they enjoyed it 100 years ago.
I love that. And thank you so much for sharing that insight. And it's that kind of has me thinking about the entire experience, especially when you say they changed it for Instagram. Like, of course,
Of course.
that's something my daughter would look for. Maybe I don't think about that, but it's just staying with what's happening, rolling with where technology is going, as you said, and being adaptive. Well, I can't thank you enough for being here and sharing your insights, sharing with us all that IAAPA is doing to support attractions globally. Just kudos to all of you, your team. I know that nothing that you all are doing can be easy, because some of these things are so big. I look at just the expo alone and can't even imagine putting something of that scale together. And so I appreciate you all so much. Lastly, before I let you go, how can someone get a hold of IAAPA? What is the best way for them to reach you or the organization? What would be your recommendation for doing that?
I'm glad you're saying that, because I wanted to ask if I can say that at the end, because
Please,
I
yeah.
know you have many listeners, many of them are members, there might be some non-members. We talked about certain benefits, not everyone might know how to access it. And this is where I ask you, reach out, find me on LinkedIn, then you go to our website. Everybody is listed there. My email address is jwahl@iapa.org. Send me an email. I promise you it will be responded, because our interest is actually to help our members and make them feel better and advance their business. There's nothing else. It's a non-for-profit. So we're happy to help wherever we can in helping you, bringing smiles to millions of guests every day around the world. Please get in touch with us so that we can help you as well.
Thank you so much, Jacob, for being on the show today and for all that IAAPA is doing. I appreciate you.
Not without you. So thank you for having me.
Of course. I appreciate it. All right. Well, hey, I hope you guys enjoyed that show as much as I do. I'm also somebody who just loves IAAPA, as you can tell. I love what they're doing for us. I love what they're teaching all of us. I love what they're sharing with us. I love how they connect to us. And I hope that maybe today you saw some of the things that, there are things that Jacob mentioned today that I didn't know existed. So like he said, reach out, get in touch with this information. This is how we improve. The industry is having and sharing these ideas. So I want to thank everybody who is watching today for making today happen, for IAAPA, and Jakob Wahl for joining me today, for every viewer that's watching, my team. It takes a lot of people, believe it or not, it takes a lot of people to put a show like this together. And we just try to get better and better for you guys. So if you have any ideas on content, or there's information that you need in the industry to help you be better at what you do, because these are amazing experiences. And I think one of the things that I love that Jacob ended with on this show today was that no matter what's happening in the world, we have these great experiences that we're providing that are changing I've said this before, the past and the future for people. We look back on these amazing experiences. This gives us something to look forward to. And I just hope that the information that's being shared on this show helps you continue with your mission of providing these amazing experiences that are improving the world. And I think this is what I love the most about this industry and this community, is that we have an opportunity to change the world. So thank you to everybody for making today happen. I'm your host, Sondra, and I'll see you on the next Live with Sondra show.